often called a dark age. Many people blame this darkness on religion, but this is a simplified story. The Middle Ages were not dark because people stopped thinking. They were dark because the world stopped moving. After the fall of the Roman Empire, order did not disappear at once. It broke apart. Cities became smaller. Trade became local. Roads lost their meaning. Power no longer belonged to empires. It belonged to land. Those who controlled land controlled life, food, protection, security. This is how landowners became rulers. This system was shaped by Germanic tribes, often called barbarians by the Romans. But these societies were not chaotic. They were organized differently. Power was personal. Loyalty mattered more than law. People followed leaders, not institutions. When these traditions mixed with Roman land systems, a new order emerged. Castles replaced cities. Local lords replaced imperial authority. The countryside became the center of life. This was the Middle Ages. Not a world asleep, but a world standing still. When Rome fell, Europe lost more than an empire. Trade routes vanished, markets collapsed, cities shrank. The roads that once carried goods, money, and people went silent. Europe turned inward, isolated, vulnerable. From the north came the Vikings, not just raiders, but masters of the sea and rivers. Their longships cut through waves, reaching coasts and inland settlements. Monasteries, small towns, undefended villages, they were all targets. Nothing was safe. The world was exposed to sudden, unpredictable violence. From the south, Muslim powers ruled the Mediterranean. From Al-Andalus to Sicily, they controlled trade and passage. The Mediterranean was no longer a highway of commerce. It was a line of defense, a source of threat. Every ship, every port, every crossing carried danger. In the east, Christianity itself was divided. The Catholic West and Orthodox East were opposed. Alliances were uncertain. The Church offered guidance but could not secure the borders. Europe was surrounded, north, south, east. This constant pressure shaped the core of the Middle Ages. A time of defense, a time of survival. Land became power. Loyalty became law. Communities closed in on themselves. People relied on local leaders, fortified settlements, and small-scale farming. The Middle Ages were born from isolation, fear, and relentless external threats. A continent surrounded, a civilization learning to endure. This was Europe after Rome. This was the age of walls, fortresses, vigilance. This was the Middle Ages. The Church did not enter the Middle Ages through a revolution of faith. It entered through a revolution of organization. Rome's lost institutional memory survived within the Church. Writing, records, calendars, legal language, administrative habits, all persisted through the Church. The Church transformed the Germanic world, not by destroying it, but by Romanizing it. Local leaders gained legitimacy through the Church. Land ownership and relations were recorded. Time was regulated by the religious calendar. Society stabilized around recurring routines. Thus, medieval society emerged. Local, agricultural, slow-moving, yet highly disciplined. The Middle Ages were not dark. It was not an age of lofty ideals. It was an age of daily order. Germanic barbarism and Roman organization merged under the Church. Landholding was the product of this synthesis. Modern Europe's political and economic mindset was shaped in these slow, silent centuries. The Middle Ages were not a rupture. They were Rome's legacy, surviving in a new form. The Middle Ages were not chaos. They were a vast system of interlocking gears. Three pillars held it together: The church, kings and nobles. The church, master of souls and legitimacy. The church was more than a religious institution. It was the era's greatest political and economic power, divine approval. A king's crown was only legitimate if placed by a cleric. Monopoly of knowledge, literacy and education were almost entirely in the church's hands. The weapon of excommunication. A king under excommunication lost authority over his people. Kings, guardians of armies and laws. Kings were theoretically supreme, practically first among equals. Central power. They struggled against nobles' local authority. Loyalty in exchange for land. Fiefs ensured soldiers and allegiance. Judiciary. Kings were the final authority but had to respect local customs and canon law. Noble. Architects of local order. Nobles represented physical power. Knighthood. They maintained local order as professional warriors. Mutual dependence. Lords were vassals to kings and had vassals of their own. Local economy. Nobles protected peasants and collected taxes and labor. Fragile but enduring, balanced kings needed nobles for armies. Nobles needed the church for divine legitimacy. The church needed both for protection and land donations. This delicate balance shaped medieval society, politics, and daily life. This balance, with all its contradictions, prepared the modern world. The modern world was not born from the destruction of the Middle Ages, but from the transformation of a balance of power. At the beginning, the center had a name, the church. Legitimacy, time, knowledge, and law were all organized around it, but no center remains fixed forever. Over time, the order created by the church began to produce new forces from within. Kings grew centralized. Nobles institutionalized local power. Cities expanded. Trade moved ahead of land. Renewal did not come from outside the system. It emerged from within it. Modernity was not shaped by a clean break with the church, but by new forms of power that attached themselves to the balance the church had created. For this reason, modernity is less a revolution and more a long story of displacement.